Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We're back with another episode of the business side of interior design. This one will specifically focus on the impact of AI on your industry and the changing trends in terms of what do clients really pay for now. Let's start off with a quantification of how AI has changed our industry. Of course, it's not all of the changes have been for the best, and let's look at some of them. First thing is counterintuitively, the concept phase has become much longer. Now, earlier, if it used to take 30 days, now it's taking about 45 or 44 days. There's a reason behind it. Review cycle has become longer because the customer has too many choices, and we see that in the next point, the paradox of choice. Now, instead of the two to three options, three to four options, four to five options that we used to give just 2 years ago, now we're giving them about 15 to 20 photorealistic options per concept. And automatically, what that means is customer is going to pick a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and try to amalgamate everything into a single piece later. Those will be the review comments that you'll get. And ultimately, some of them will work together, some of them will not. Eventually, it just keeps on becoming longer and longer, and almost by 40%. Even though the generation of the work is very quick, right? Now, having said that, even then there are issues because customers still dissatisfied with the AI output as well as the designer. Designers say 69%, designers, they say that they're only somewhat satisfied. And there's a reason behind it because a lot of outputs have a problem where they look really good, but functionally, acoustically, when photons wise, light wise, it's not going to be all that great. It'll look great in the renders, but it won't really be usable without a lot of human intervention. The second problem, this is also from the customer perspective, not only from the designer perspective, but there's a problem of sameness. Designs look very similar to each other, all of the generated ones, especially across all the different AI engines. And there's a reason behind it. The technical reason is this: AI is trained on massive data sets. A large part of this massive data set is always going to belong to some trends. For example, the minimalist trend, contemporary trend, maybe Italian. Right? And because the bulk of data is going to belong to that, so therefore what it's going to generate on the basis of this is also going to remain in a similar style. Now, having said this, ultimately all of this sums up to a devaluation of the value we bring. When AI is able to produce 20 good looking renders overnight, I'm not saying that they're great renders in the sense they're perfect, everything's taken care of, but the customer perceives that a lot of these are near usable, right? We know better, but the customer doesn't. And perception is ultimately what's devaluing the work. And consequently, clients really begin to think, what is the designer's expertise? What are they bringing to the table? Why not just go with the contractor uncle who lives down the street? Now, from that, let's switch gears a little bit because customer still has a lot of worries and major anxieties, major ones, which AI has increased, which is where our value proposition, you'll say later, takes shape. Right? Number one, customers are not sure what they see in renders is exactly how it will look up when they face it up in terms of reality after being built, or will it start to look very same as others, very ordinary, right? Will it look better than the house that Mr. Kumar has down the street or Mrs. Kumar has down the street? And then they're also very much aware that they're constantly changing their mind. Most customers know that, hey, every day I'm finding something new, and I'm becoming frozen in terms of analysis paralysis. Then a lot of customers, not everyone, but a lot of customers also think in terms of it being feasible. For example, somebody might generate a very nice movie room, but they will still be worried about the echoes. They will still be worried about the bass being too muddy. They know that acoustic treatment, how it should be, how it shouldn't be, needs an acoustics expert. Or for that matter, the light in the house is primarily going to come from a particular direction because it faces another way, right? Rather than it just being artificial lights. So will it really look the way the render is showing it to look throughout the day? Maybe, maybe not. These are fears which they're very well aware of. And this brings us to their dependency on them. And there are two distinct kind of clients if you use this framework. Some clients who trust us, right? Some clients who don't trust us. The ones that don't trust us or trust us a little bit, and they have a tendency to typically bring us solutions and not problems. We solve problems through design. We don't just implement the designs, right? But they're going to bring us designs which they want us to implement as is. They will override our guidance. And in essence, they're managing us rather than us managing the project or us managing them. There's a second set of client. This is the, let's call it mature client. They recognize that what they have and what they know and what they're aware of are the problems that they have in life, which they want to solve through a house rather than solutions. A lot of times, even the problem statement might be vague. When they look at a render, they might very well say, hey, something feels off. I'm not sure why. Or I'm not sure why. Then they leave the diagnosis of the problem in your own hand. Now, they are aware of your expertise and how you see far ahead of what they can see. The dimensions that they can see are only aesthetic. What we can see is functional as well, right? And this trust brings in what the Greeks used to call the oracle and follower relationship. Now, let's dive a little bit into this trust factor, right? During the lead to contract phase, our job is not just to get the demographic information, but to understand the from an empathy perspective what the real problem is that they're trying to solve. We have to listen specifically, not in a general way. General questions don't work. We have to extract the emotional needs. I'm going to give you an example. I've pulled it out specifically for this, but I keep these shoes for my that my 1.5 year old son used to wear when he was one and a half on my table. That's not an aesthetic choice, it's an emotional choice. I want it to always be there on my table to remind me of what I work for and why I work, right? That same way every customer has an emotional need apart from the practical needs. Somebody with elderly parents would need all the reinforcement in the elder care fittings in the toilet. Somebody who's stressed 24/7, who has extremely late night calls, may be a good idea to give them a small corner bar in their office area or maybe a calm nook. You understand this. If you're empathetic, AI cannot. When things move to the design and review stage, again, we've talked about this a little bit earlier, but low trust clients are always going to bring you solutions. High trust clients are going to bring you problems. And the difference is going to be in whether you can explain to them clearly, cogently, comprehensively, coherently why some designs are good looking versus why some designs are good. You have to maintain your authority. If you are just agreeable, you lose your authority. Right? You are not leading them anymore. They are essentially hiring you to just build something rather than to understand the problem and build the right thing. And that flows into construction as well. Somebody who trusts you takes your advice on material selection, on its maintainability, on long term value. They understand that you're the person who sits atop the industry in terms of their knowledge, where you know every single material to a general at worst and to a specific at best degree. They recognize that you're the expert where they're not. They're the expert in their own area, and you're the expert in your own. Now, I touched up upon this a little bit earlier, but this is the Oracle relationship. If you compete with AI on output, then it simply is not tenable or feasible for you. AI can generate a million different examples by the time you create a single one and you know it. They might not be ideal, but they perceive to be good enough, which is a problem. Therefore, competing purely on AI on output will be a problem. What you have to do is you have to recognize that you have to build the oracle follower trust in the customer, that you can see further than them. You understand them better than they understand themselves. Your role is to protect them from regret. Now, if we deep dive into this a little bit, how do you build it? Right? When we build it within the lead and pre-contract stages, what we're doing is we're just listening empathetically to your real need. We're not listening to what you want. We're listening to what you really need. The elderly example, parents example that I gave earlier is a great starting point for it. From the demographic information, we extract the relationship. How much time do your parents spend with you, right? And then we know what are the problems that you would be looking to solve. What we need to understand is what is unsaid. Now, if we give generic proposals, it simply wouldn't impress anyone, especially in the age of AI. What we need to figure out is how do we create specific proposals which reflect their life, not their design choice alone, right? But their lives. And then here's the most critical part. We lose authority every time we're just trying to be agreeable rather than being honest. Now, the core reason underlying it is this. Every time we agree without a reason, right, we give client the feeling that he knows far better than you. It builds upon itself, and very soon, as things will go wrong because they do not in reality know better than you, then you would not have any standing to correct the course. You did not want them ahead of choice. Then what makes them believe that you're the right person to fix what you did not want them about? Anyway, the next job is to sustain this trust through the design and review stage, right? If the client brings solution instead of problems, you have to pause and again go back to them and ask them, why is this the right solution? Why do you feel this is the right solution? Because it's an opportunity for you to understand what they really are looking for, not purely aesthetically, right? It's the symptom, not the problem, right? A design that you get on Pinterest or Instagram or anywhere, right? Your job is to figure out what the problem is. We don't simply validate their instincts. What we do is we recognize where they can regret tomorrow, and then we go to them and we tell them what they can do to create something that they will not regret. We're the ones who own the review, not them. Now, the last one is throughout construction, review and construction, we have to protect this trust. Now, I'll give you a classic example, which I'm sure many of you have already felt in your day to day jobs. A large number of projects which are coming to us now are the ones where something had gone wrong and we're called in late to fix it. It's because the contractors were unagreeable. Oh, were agreeable, I'm sorry, to an untenable degree. And because they just agreed with whatever the customer said, whether it was feasible or not, the project got stuck or there were issues, and the customers saw it later that there were issues, something that you would have been able to predict, and now there are regrets. Our job is the exact opposite, which is to flag problems before they become regrets. We have to document decisions and rationale. We also have to document what all items we ask the customer to take, what all decisions we ask the customer to take, and then the decisions from the customer. If we don't do that, then we open ourselves for a blame game, right? And oracles cannot play the blame game. Now, with that, let's get to the next slide, right? If your value proposition in this day and date is indeed as an oracle, then what you need is a platform that's focused on building trust with the client from initial phase by giving